Hey, Nick Darr here with Business Over a Brew. Pleased to shoot this episode at the Old Bakery Beer Company here in Alton. As a lot of you know, the location where we used to shoot the show, Great Rivers Tap and Grill, decided to close down as businesses do sometimes, and kind of left us scrambling a little bit, looking for a location to shoot our next episode. And on very short notice, we called Lauren at Old Bakery here, and she was immediately said, "Sure, come down and shoot it." So just very generous of them to let us use the space on such short notice to shoot the show here. It's a really terrific business. They really run a great place here at Old Bakery. And it's a good fit for our show too, because they're a great business and obviously they serve brew and make it here. So it's a terrific place to have it. If you haven't had lunch here or dinner, I highly recommend you do that. The food is terrific. The beer selection is great bourbon selection as well. So it's just a great place to hang out in a historic building here in Alton. So come check out Old Bakery Beer. And thanks again to Lauren and everybody for letting us have the show here at Old Bakery in Alton. Welcome to Business Over Brew. I'm your host, Nick Darr. This is a show where we talk business with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business people. Pleased to be joined in this episode by Abigail Parker from Nourished Revival. Abigail, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about your business, how it got started, and just a brief history of it and what you do.
Yeah, so the short answer is I am a nutritional therapist. I help people really take control of their health through nutrition and lifestyle. I graduated high school and I knew that I wanted to help people. So I ended up going to SLU. I got my bachelor's of science in MRI. I was fortunate to get a job fresh out of college in MRI, and I was only working a couple of months whenever my boss announced that he was leaving. And in that moment I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a boss. And of course, nobody was going to hire a boss as somebody fresh out of college. I had no idea what it was like to be a boss. But then when my new boss came in, I had told her that I was excited to learn more about what it was like to manage. And so for years, I was taking on extra roles, doing what I could. And whenever she decided she was going to leave, they went ahead and changed the position to a lead. And I was really excited to be in that position at that point. And then in 2020, of course, the world slowed down.
A little.
Yeah. In that moment, I, of course, was home more and on my phone more, as probably many people were, scrolling social media. And at that point, I knew nothing about nutrition. I didn't like to cook or any of that. But for some reason, that's what I was seeing was stuff about nutrition. And the thing that changed my life was I saw somebody talking about aspartame, which is associated with diets. Mm-hmm. People associate that as an artificial sweetener in diet beverages typically. And the thing with that actually is there's links to Alzheimer's later in life. So in that moment, my eyes were open to the fact that nutrition can actually affect our health in the long run. Up until that point, I kind of just thought of food as calories. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know much about it at all. And in that moment, I realized that nutrition was a way to be able to help people more than what I was already doing. And I saw people on social media that were making a difference, teaching people and helping people from their phones. And so I was like, I want to do this. If they can do it, I can do it. So I went ahead, went back to school, got a nutrition certification, quit my full-time job, and went all in on launching my own business. And so now it's really fulfilling that I get to help people on a personal level, taking clients and helping them improve their health through food.
And that was about a year ago that you got started, officially started the business. I want to get back to the nutrition side of things, certainly, but just talk about just some of the nuts and bolts stuff of starting a business. Like, what were the first steps that you took?
So I actually was starting my business and starting to take clients before I finished up my job. So I was trying to manage running, the business along with working full time, but I had already been going to school full time and doing that too. So I was trying to take it step by step, and of course it was overwhelming. But looking back now, it was like I made it through. Really, it was just a matter of I needed to get my LLC in place, my tax ID number, mm-hmm. and then I was pretty much ready to start taking clients.
One of the things that people don't think about is like one of the first things you need to figure out is how am I going to ask for and take money? So was that an easy part of it for you, or was that something that took a little research for you?
Yeah, that was an easier part. I work virtually, so I take clients from anywhere, which is fantastic.
Right.
So I needed a payment processor online, and there's only a few really that fit the bill. And luckily, being an NTP, there's a great vast NTP community, so I was able to kind of talk with other people and see what they liked and be able to narrow down pretty easily.
That's such a game changer for business owners, no matter what category you're going into. There's a community of people, and there's videos out there, and there's so many resources now for starting any kind of business that it really has changed the way we go about things. It's just, we'll just look it up on YouTube. It's kind of how most of us think when it comes to learning something. Talk about your just your personal nutrition journey. You said it wasn't something you were doing. Is it something you pretty much immediately started as soon as you started the business, or how has that worked?
Yeah, so my journey has influenced being able to help clients a lot because I grew up, like I said, not really knowing anything about nutrition. And for most of my life, I loved sugar. I love sugar, I love sweets. And so that's most of what I ate. And whenever I started to get into nutrition, realizing how food impacts how we feel, I at first was like, oh, my sugar cravings are out of control. This is where I want to start eating better. And I thought, I need to cut out sugar because it's a mind game. It's just my cravings are in my mind. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to feel better. And of course, that only made it worse. And I would want to have a brownie, and I would tell myself, I'd have half a brownie, and then I ate a whole brownie, and then somehow I ate 2 brownies. And luckily then, when I got into nutrition school, I started to actually learn the proper nutrition, and I realized symptoms like cravings are just our body's way of telling us that we're not eating right for our needs. And so I was able to make some changes, and it was amazing. I remember it was like one day all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't craving sugar anymore. I had been in a routine of wanting dessert before I really even finished my dinner. And there came the time where all of a sudden I was like, I haven't eaten dessert in nights.
Right.
It was just amazing how I could manage something that I thought was a part of me that I never expected to change. And so that made a big impact when I wanted to start taking clients, to be able to speak to the fact, like, I know what it's like to go through struggles and to be able to relate to a lot of the things that people are going through.
It's such an emotional thing because it's most people that have dieted or whatever, they've tried to not eat sugar, they've tried to eat healthy, and tried and failed so many times. So there's some shame involved in it. Just talk about the process that you go through with a client from like day one.
Yeah, so when I take on clients, it starts with some paperwork at first, because I really like to get to know people. In order to help people, you have to know exactly what their life is like. So I get to know what symptoms they're dealing with, not just the ones that are apparent to them that are bothering them, because there's a lot of symptoms that have been normalized. Things like bloat and heartburn and even like migraines can be things that people think are maybe more normal, that have some root causes that we can talk about. So I get to know a lot of their symptoms, and I get to see how exactly they're eating in their day-to-day life. I get to know their family life, their work life. And then we meet over 3 months to really dive into what their concerns are when they're starting to work with me. And we make little changes along the journey of that 3 months in order to get them the results that they're looking for. And a lot of that is that every time we're meeting, we're talking about why things are happening to them, why they're feeling certain ways, and why the changes that I'm talking about they should make, if they are interested, are going to make the difference for them. And they get to make the choice whether or not they want to make the changes, or if they see it fitting into their lifestyle, because it's really all about, when it comes to healthy eating, doing what works for you. If you are forcing yourself to do anything, like you're feeling the guilt from it, then you're not going to stick with it. It has to be something that you want to do.
You mentioned 2 things, root causes and little things. What are some common root causes for why people eat the way they eat?
Yeah, so
Unhealthy eaters, I guess, like myself.
Well,
Fix me while you're on the show.
Oh, we can dive into that. I'm happy.
Gosh, we don't have that kind of time, but go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of things that people are doing, contributing to kind of the average symptoms, Or skipping breakfast is a huge one. When you're skipping breakfast,
Check. I never eat breakfast. Okay.
Oh, see, I'm helping you already without trying.
Yeah.
Skipping breakfast kind of messes with your stress levels,
Mm.
which can increase your sugar cravings the rest of the day. It can cause fatigue later in the day. People often also are thinking that they're eating too much and they're really not eating enough. If you're not eating enough for your body, that can make it so that you're craving food more. You're feeling more out of control when you do eat, because in the moment when you are eating, your body is saying, I need the food.
Right.
And so you're losing control because of the fact that you need to eat more.
More often, or more calories, or both?
Kind of both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I talk about generally eating 3 to 5 hours for everybody. That helps to kind of keep a good baseline for you. And it's just kind of dependent upon your body where you fit into that during the day.
What are some little things that you start with then with a client? If it's not a total, because I think a big part of it maybe is, gosh, I got to do this total overhaul. I got to stop eating carbs, or I got to stop eating sugar, and they try to go cold turkey. And that's usually, I think, a formula for failure maybe.
Right. I told you I experienced that myself when I thought, oh, I need to cut out sugar. That'll be my solution. Well, then I only wanted it more and I lost control when I had it.
Right.
So I do step-by-step approach, because anytime you go all in on something, you kind of get this idea of perfectionism in your mind.
Right.
And then whenever you fail at that perfectionism, you can give up completely and you end up right back where you started. So that's why I do the step-by-step approach, so that by the end of working together, my clients feel like they have this new routine that they can maintain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to see their confidence even from the time we start working together to the time we end working together. But throughout our time together, we're always talking about just little steps they can make. So it might be the fact that we're going to talk about, okay, you don't eat breakfast right now. Can you see yourself eating breakfast? And we start with something small. Maybe they, of course, are not hungry in the morning. They don't want a full meal. So let's start with just a little bit of yogurt and a banana is something that you could eat.
Right. I think another component of it is finding that maybe those early successes. Is that a big part of it? Because I've been on diets, and I know people that have been on diets, and they'll break them, and then, but they don't, like, even though maybe you just broke it for one day, but then you don't go back, then it's just like you stop and like, I'll just give up.
Yeah, I teach balance because of the fact that there's no such thing as perfect. And so throughout our time talking together, of course, I am telling them things that they can do to make things fit more to their needs. So like talking about sugar, you know, I used to have horrible sugar cravings and loved sugar, and I still do love sugar. But instead of feeling like I need to eat it randomly throughout the day, I can savor it as dessert now and eat a little bit and not feel bad about it. So we talk about how you can find this balance to be able to enjoy the things that you want to. And as they are making these step-by-step changes, they are noticing how their mind is shifting, but they're also noticing differences in their body. Within the first few weeks of working together, my clients typically are talking to me about the fact that they're feeling more confident about eating, because they are not, they're noticing they're not eating quite so much already. They're being more mindful about what they're eating, and they're starting to get in more touch with their hunger and their fullness levels. That's one of the first things we work on, is really just being in tune with your body. And it's amazing how that can help your confidence.
Let's talk about the growth of your business in the first year. How is that? Where are you at growth-wise, and how have you been able to accomplish that?
Yeah, it's really, I have a very interesting story, I think. I hit the ground running whenever I launched my business.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, I signed on 3 clients in the first month, and I was so excited.
This is easy?
Yeah, I was like, this is great. I'm
Right.
so excited to help people. The new year came, and I had a health issue myself, and it kind of forced me to take a step back. I had an infection that kind of had me bound to the couch for a month. And of course that took a hit, on my, physical body, not being able to move the way I wanted to, but also
Right.
on my mentality because of that too. So I ended up where at the beginning of the year, I was working with the clients that I had, but I wasn't really trying to get any other clients because I just didn't have the mental capacity to do it at the time.
Right. Probably at a time of year where first of the year, that's probably like the time of year for you in your business.
Yeah.
Or a good time of year, certainly.
Yeah, you think of the new year being when people are most ready and looking forward to making some changes. So
Right.
I ended up spending the first majority of the year kind of reassessing my mind and where I was at. And then I ended up deciding that I wanted to take a different approach midway through this year. Prior to that, I was primarily focusing on social media. And I love social media because of the fact that you can talk to anyone.
Sure, right.
But at the same time, you're talking to anyone, and it's sometimes like you're talking to no one, because you don't get
Right.
that face-to-face interaction to know who you're talking to in the conversations. So when I came back with my business, I ended up deciding that I wanted to do a lot more in-person things and getting to actually connect with people and have like face-to-face conversations like this, which has been amazing to actually connect with people. And even I'm getting to know my clients on a personal level more, so that we finish working together and they end up adding me on Facebook and we're friends now almost. You
Right,
know?
but you've actually met each other in person, so it's
A lot of
more
them,
of a
yeah.
tangible, real friendship than just a social media friendship. Where is your furthest away client? Where are they from?
The furthest away I had was in Oregon.
Okay, wow.
So really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Obviously, they saw the value in what you're doing. And,
Yeah.
and that's good. How are you? You mentioned the face to face. What are some other ways you're working to foster just good client relationships in your business?
I am really big on connecting. So I like to do all the face-to-face stuff that I can. If it's one-on-one, I will say I'll buy you a cup of coffee and let's talk about what you're struggling with and how I can help. I also like to do just general talks. If there's any events coming up, whether it's like a wellness event or a talk for a business, that I can provide just general support for people to be able to have a conversation with a room full of people and share about nutrition and what a difference it can make in their life. And I even like to do where I can just come up with freebies, like a free PDF guide on stress relief and how stress can impact your health and how nutrition ties in, that I can just hand out to people as a resource in order to start learning. I love just ways that I can provide help, whether that is in the form of something free or if it's somebody that's actually interested in working with me one-on-one.
In the first year, what's been the most rewarding aspect of the business for you?
I have a couple of things that come to mind. The first thing is my first referral I got. One of my very first clients referred somebody else to me, which I feel like is the biggest
Right.
compliment, that somebody enjoyed working with me so much that she actually told me about somebody else. It goes to show the effort that she put in to get the results. And so it was just amazing to have that kind of like respect felt as a business owner. The other thing was a client I had who had a trauma. And it's interesting because I talk about people typically feel like they eat too much. And in his case, he felt like he wasn't eating enough. He had kind of this miscommunication between his brain and his hunger cues because of his trauma, that he didn't really ever feel hungry. And by the time we finished working together, he was eating regularly throughout the day. And I noticed this like uplift in his energy, which was just really amazing.
I would think, is there, or maybe this hasn't happened, but I would think you get emotionally invested in your clients too. And it's almost like when they, I don't know, fall off the wagon is the right term, but if they, don't do what, they don't get the results, and you have some control over the results because you're advising them, but they're the ones that have to actually eat the food. So I would think there might be some emotional trauma on your part when they don't get the results they're looking for.
Almost like a parent
Yes,
who's like telling
right.
their kid, like,
Hey,
you
this
know,
is
you
good
should
for
be
you.
doing
Right,
that. And it's not like that at all, really, because of the fact that we're a team. So I never am in the mindset of like putting somebody into guilt or shame for not doing
Right.
anything. It's all about what's working for them. So if it turns out that we have decided on a change that they're going to make, and they come back to me and they're like, I'm sorry, I ended up not doing it, it's completely fine. Instead, we're going to talk about, what do you think was the barrier that made it so you didn't do that? What would you like to do instead?
Right. How do you prioritize and balance the lots of stuff that there is to do as a business owner with personal life and family life?
It's interesting because my days are never the same. So I try very much to focus one day at a time. Like, I work one step at a time with my clients. I take everything one day at a time.
Right.
So I have my calendar very organized. It's color coded. So I have my client calls, my educational webinars, my personal life. All of it is a different color so that I can look every day in advance to see what's coming up. And then I'll overall look every week to try to figure out what I need to plan for.
What are your goals and plans for the business in the next year?
It's really interesting because as a business owner in my field, I have a lot of peers that name their businesses after themselves. So I could have named my business like Abigail Parker Nutrition,
Right.
but I went with Nourished Revival because I wanted to have a name that represents something more than me. So if not in the next year and years to come, I would love to keep helping as many people as I can so that I get to the point where I've grown so much that the business becomes more than just me and there's a team behind the name to be able to help people even more.
Well, it sounds like you're doing great. Definitely on the right path. Best of luck to you in the future. Thanks for coming on the show. Anything else that we didn't mention that you'd like to make sure people know about your business?
I am all over social media, but the easiest way to reach out and connect with me is just my website. It's www.nourishedrevival.com. When you go to my website, you click, there's a link that says start here, and I have a freebie right there for anybody to grab. If you are looking how to eat better, maybe you need more energy, maybe sugar cravings have been an issue for you. But there's a 5-step guide. You sign up to get it, and it provides 5 tips in order to go ahead and start making those simple changes with your nutrition to get some results for you.
Great. NourishedRevival.com. Check that out. Abigail, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.